Welcome to this episode of our program Daily Debate. As usual, we will be discussing important debate. Tonight we'll be shedding light on the Economic Summit on its second day, where this very important summit is taking place here in Egypt and gather many of the high-ranking officials, many of the economic people, intellectuals, experts, financial experts, and definitely many of people who are into the businessmen and academic people, plus definitely many other experts. They are all gathered together in order to put policies and put the path on track for the upcoming future, in order to be able to put Egypt's economy on the right path and be able to confront the world crisis that has had its own repercussions not only on Egypt but on the whole world. Here the conference is tackling various tracks. The first includes the macroeconomic policies, while the second track focuses on empowering the private sector and creating a business environment, and the third one is devoted to formulation of a future roadmap for the priority sectors in the government work program for this upcoming period. Tonight we'll be speaking about this economic conference taking place in Egypt, as I said, and we'll be speaking about what could be a vision towards a better future, towards the right path, for the right track for the Egyptian economy. We'll be speaking about that with our guest, Dr. Abdelwahab Ghunaim, information technology expert. Thank you so much for being with us tonight.
Yes, thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. And before we delve into our discussion, let me first have a quick look on the top stories of the day. And President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi instructed to provide efficiency-heavy agricultural equipment for the winter season to achieve the highest production rates from the reclamation areas across the nation. President Sisi also ordered to boost the state's efforts to upgrade the agriculture sector with the aim of reaching self-sufficiency of strategic crops and providing job opportunities in all domains, as well as establishing productive and industrial communities. The President's remarks came during his meeting on Monday with the Presidential Advisor for Urban Planning, the head of the Armed Forces Engineering Authority, and a number of concerned officials. The meeting reviewed progress report of several national projects for land reclamation, especially in Toshka, in the South Valley, and infrastructure projects for roads, networks, and water treatment plants. Back to our second top story of the day, and a second session of the Economic Conference Egypt 2022 was held on Monday, entitled International Funding in Support to the Private Sector, Opportunities and Horizons. The session draws attention to economic reforms which aim at increasing investment by both private and public sectors, with the indispensable role of international partners in supporting these reforms. Minister of International Cooperation Rania Al-Mashrat said under implementation projects include projects that is receiving $23 billion in international development funding, with $7 billion of these funds going to the private sector. The minister added that several packages were adopted by the government to support the private sector, pointing out to the launch of framework of international cooperation and development funding in 2020. In a remark at the second session of Monday's proceedings, Prime Minister Dr. Mustafa Madbouli said the state is interested in expanding mega projects in partnership with the private sector, mainly in green energy and renewable energy. He also said that the state assists the private sector to receive loans from international institutions to implement these projects. Right, and back to our main topic of tonight, the Economic Summit and its significance to put Egypt's economy on the right path. Before we delve into our discussion, let's first have this quick report. And Prime Minister Dr. Madbouli to Egypt's economic conference, controlling inflation more important than exchange rates. Let's watch.
Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli affirmed that Egypt prioritizes curbing inflation over the issue of exchange rates, stressing that the devaluation of the Egyptian pound does not mean that the economy is in a bad situation. Madbouli made his remarks in the opening session of Egypt's Economic Conference 2022 that kicked off on Sunday. Meanwhile, Egypt has been working on controlling the inflation rate, which has risen to a 4-year high of 15% since February. Madbouli reviewed various economic challenges and indicators over the past decade, urging the conference to agree on a clear roadmap for the most important economic sectors. He stressed that this roadmap should be translated into executive plans to be implemented over the near future. Madbouli said that Egypt, along with the rest of the world, has experienced economic difficulties, highlighting the global slowdown in growth, unprecedented increase in inflation rates, capital outflow and rising global debt. Reviewing economic indicators, Madbouli said Egypt's public debt to its GDP ratio has been brought down from almost 103% in 2016 to 81% ahead of the coronavirus pandemic. The Prime Minister expects debt to GDP ratio to reach 90% during the fiscal year against the backdrop of the Russia-Ukraine war, but stressed that the state aims at bringing the ratio down to 71.9% by 2027. The Premier, however, noted that Egypt's high foreign debt to export and the debt service to export ratios are beyond safe levels. The role of the government, business community and the private sector to find out how to work on bringing these numbers back to the safe levels in Egypt. 73% of Egypt's foreign debts are medium and long-term commitments. For 5 consecutive years, Egypt has achieved primary surplus, which means that the country's income has been higher than government spending, excluding the debt service. He said that this enables the country to pay off its debts, noting that Egypt's agreements with the International Monetary Fund always includes the condition that Egypt achieves this surplus. To improve the economy, Egypt has implemented major national projects over the past decade, with a cost of 7 trillion Egyptian pounds. More than 90% of these projects have been implemented by the private sector. The private sector's share of GDP in Egypt hit 75% in the fiscal year 2021-2022.